Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're doing the what's next on the unified middleweight champion of the world, future Hall of Famer, Triple G Gennady Golovkin, as he's coming off of his tough 12-round unanimous decision loss to Canelo Alvarez as he moved up to 168 and challenged Canelo for the undisputed title on Saturday, September 17th on DAZN pay-per-view. It was the third fight between the two. Canelo came in the, sizable favorite, and he pretty much controlled the action as Triple G seemed reluctant to kind of open up until the later rounds. And once he did, you could tell Canelo had tired down a little bit, and Triple G won, at least 3 or 4 rounds towards the end there. But I was definitely surprised at the scoring that 2 of the 3 judges had Triple G winning 5 rounds. But hey, with this rivalry, it's kind of tough to tell with their 2 styles. I think they have 2 styles that mesh to create a very close fight between the 2. So I'm not going to judge, excuse me. However, this was an okay fight that ended their rivalry, but Triple G, even at 40, even with this loss, people fail to understand that, what he said at the end, that he's still a champion. He still holds half of the titles at middleweight. He holds 2 of the 4 belts. He's the #1 middleweight in the world still, because it's a wide open division and nobody has really tried to fight each other to take over at middleweight. And Triple G was in the most significant fight of the year at middleweight against Ryota Murata, in which he defeated Murata, stopping him. And again, it wasn't, that's not the most meaningful fight, but it was definitely a significant one. And it locked Triple G up with 2 belts. So now, and he said prior to the Canelo fight that he's nearing the end of his career, but he never once said that he would retire no matter what the outcome. And the fact that he was somewhat competitive against Canelo should show everybody that this guy is ready to bang. And at 160 still, I believe he's going to continue his career. But now the question is, what's next for Triple G Gennady Golovkin? So we're going to get into all the options. We're going to get into all the details right now. The first thing I want to talk about is it's also going to be up to Triple G's contract with DAZN. Now, I went back and looked at what his contract was, because I read a report that it could be the end of his contract. Well, technically, this was the 5th fight of his 6-fight deal that he signed back in 2019. He did restructure that deal in 2020. Because at the time he was making a roughly $15 million a fight. He restructured that deal and was making a little less, but I want to say he made somewhere in the 20-something million range for the Canelo fight. So I'm not sure if he has one more fight left on his DAZN contract, or if he's technically a free agent, because I heard something, but again, it's nothing confirmed that he is still with or that he is a free agent now. So we're going to run through the top 10 and see what possibly could be next for the reigning unified middleweight champion. So we're going to, obviously Triple G's #1. The guy I have at #2, I did have at #2, is Demetrius Andre. And obviously this fight is not going to happen. Andre has already relinquished his WBO middleweight title and was scheduled to move up to 160 or 168. And he's reneged on that already, a fight with Zach Parker. So he could stay at 160, but he has nothing for Triple G to go for. So this fight, I don't believe it has any legs to it next. Then you got Jermall Charlo, the undefeated WBC champion. I don't see this fight next, but I definitely think we could potentially see this fight in 2023. The reason I say that is, if Triple G fights Erislandy Lara, whether it be on DAZN or especially if it's with the PBC on Showtime or Fox, he's going to have a foot in the door with the PBC at that point. And if he secures the WBA belt, then you can unify And if he's worked with them already, he might be willing to fight Charlo because it's a sizable money fight and it's significant. So I definitely think this fight has some legs to it. I just don't think it's going to happen next. Then you got Erislandy Lara, the reigning WBA regular champion. Now, if Triple G wants to hold on to his WBA belt, then he has to fight Lara next. The WBA has already ordered this fight, and now they're awaiting word from Triple G if he's going to accept this fight as his next one. I think this is the perfect comeback fight for Triple G for a few reasons. First off, there's not a real threat here. Well, first off, it keeps the WBA title locked up for him. You know, he secures at least that belt with a victory. Then, you know, you're fighting a former or a good solid veteran who's not much your junior. I think Erislandy Lara is like 39 now, I believe. So he's up there, but he's still significant enough, you know, and still considered to be a threat. But he's also hittable. And that's the other thing, you don't have to worry about his power. Now, Triple G doesn't really have to worry about anybody's power. He's got such a good chin. But Lara doesn't hit really hard. He's not a big-time puncher. So I think this is a perfect comeback fight for him because Lara actually has a good, solid name. And like I said earlier, this could get his foot in the door with the PBC to possibly have a showdown with Jermall Charlo or any other PBC fighter with a name heading into next year. So I definitely think this fight can happen. You know, and I think this might be the most logical one for Triple G. Then you got Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank's going to be fighting Conor Benn in a couple weeks here on October 8th. And if he beats Conor Benn at their catch weight, I believe they're fighting at a catch weight of like 156, or yeah, I think it's 156. If he gets by there, he becomes, you know, significant enough. But Triple G has mandatories due. You know, he's got Lara, which, my opinion, worldwide is a bigger name. He has Esquiva Falcao, who's an undefeated Brazilian fighter in the IBF. You know, it's possible he fights Falcao, but he would hold on to a belt fighting one of his mandatories, and I just think that makes more sense for Triple G than anything. Then you have Janibek Alamakanuli, Kazakh style. Now, I'm sure Triple G would love to fight his brethren here from Kazakhstan, but it's not a big enough fight yet. Although, I can see this fight down the road due to the fact that it's an all Kazakhstan fight, plus they would be unifying belts at some point. So I definitely think this fight has some legs to it in the future. If he's still tied with DAZN, I don't believe it happens though. But if he opens the door up following potentially his next fight, then he can work with Top Rank and this fight could happen. So definitely in the future, but not next. Jaime Manguia, it's a DAZN fight. It's a fight that's been talked about. I think Manguia would love to fight him, and I think Triple G, as long as he can hold on to one of his belts, wouldn't be opposed to this fight. But, you know, we got to see if he's still going to be tied with DAZN, and if Manguia really wants this fight or not, and if there's going to be any titles at stake. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. I definitely think this fight could happen, though, potentially. Carlos Adames, he's in line to potentially fight, to become the mandatory to Charlo. Shit, he might even get the next crack at Charlo. We don't know, but I don't see Adames, him with the PBC right now. I don't see him jumping to the front of the line to get a Triple G fight. And he's not going to fight Ryota Murata again. He dominated him and stopped him. There's no point. And Sergey Derevyanchenko, he's lost too many fights. I think a rematch would be big for Triple G, just to leave no doubt. But the fact that Derevyanchenko's lost to Charlo and then Adames after that, there's no point in Triple G fighting him next. So, and again, he's not in the top 10, but Esquiva Falcao is the mandatory #1 contender for the IBF. So he's definitely an option for Triple G as well, if Triple G wants to hold on to that belt instead. So after all this, with all these options, what do I think Triple G is going to do? I think it's very possible. I think there's 3 options on the table, realistically. I think Jaime Manguia is probably the fight that he wants the most. because Manguia is a Mexican, and Triple G knows that that's got a huge fan base, and he'd want to make that fight. But Triple G's got to secure a title. You know, he's got to make sure he's fighting for a belt, and he might not be able to. The WBA might strip him if he doesn't fight Lara. The IBF might strip him if he doesn't fight Falchao. Now, the IBF hasn't said nothing about that, but he definitely, if he fights Manguia next, he definitely would have to have a title at stake. In my opinion, I think he'd want a title at stake. I think he'd be willing to give up one, but not both. So that's the only snag I see in that one right there between him and Manguia. But I think Manguia would be his favorite of his three options. Second best option that I think he could go for, and very likely might, is the Erislandy Lara fight. It's a fight that makes sense. Lara's not, in terms of age, he's not too much younger. He's only like a year or so, year and a half younger. They're both up there in age. He doesn't hit that hard, and he's got a big enough name. I think it's very, very possible that he fights Lara next. The fight's been ordered already. If he doesn't, he's going to get stripped of the belt, and I don't think he wants to get stripped of the belt. And then the third option is Esquiva Falchao, because he's the mandatory in the IBF. Now, the IBF has not ordered this fight. They might be willing to work with Triple G and have him wait out the Lara fight if that's the route Triple G goes. They might even allow Falchao to fight for an interim belt if Triple G gives up the WBA and goes after Manguia. But I still think, because he's not a big name and he's undefeated, Triple G might lean that way because he's done that in the past. He's fought guys that don't have big names just to keep it moving and hold on to a world title. And I think that's possible. So there's three big names in the mix, right? Or three names in the mix. I really don't know which direction. I think he could go in either direction. If you had to put me on the spot to pick one, I'm going to say the Lara fight would be next for him. But I absolutely think if he can secure a title, that he would rather fight Manguia. And I wouldn't be surprised if he throws us all off and chooses Falchao to hold on to the IBF belt. So we'll see what happens. But that's the what's next on Triple G. Gennady Golovkin, the reigning unified middleweight champion of the world, following a tough unanimous decision loss to Canelo Alvarez in their third fight on the DAZN pay-per-view on Saturday, September 17th. So if you enjoyed the video, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been here with the truth.